Planet Vero Studio is powered by the Nolan Group of RE/MAX Associated Realty. MyNextHomeFinder.com.
Welcome to Treasure Coast Community Health. We have 8 locations to serve you better. Our staff is dedicated to help you and your family. Here's your host, Vicki Soule.
Good morning and welcome to Community Conversations. We know that primary care is so essential for individuals, their families, their children, their relatives, and even their neighbors, because good health is very important. But we also recognize that we are not an island, that good health is a combination of a lot of different things. And one of the most important things that I think we have done in the last 5 years is really work together with our school system so that we can reach out to more children and get them on a promising path to good health. So in that vein, I've finally been able to secure Dr. David Moore, the superintendent of schools, to have a conversation about what's going on over there. So welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work you do in your community, the partnership. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, I am too, because I realize that you came up from Miami just as COVID was starting.
I didn't bring it here. But
I know you did.
That is a true story. So 44 days into my superintendency, came here. January 5th was the actual first day of work for me. Really excited going out, listening to the community, getting a deep understanding as to where we really need to move our school system, building those needed relationships in order to make those connections, really to begin to transform what teaching and learning look like in our county. And then 44 days, March 13th, everything changed.
It sure did. And I'll tell you, honestly, from one leader to another, if that happened 44 days into my tenure as a CEO, I might have said, this isn't the right job for me. So I give you a lot of credit.
Thank you.
For your courage, your fortitude, and again, your vision that has brought us forward that year and a half.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And I think when you go into, as you know, a new organization, it's about establishing relationships, building trust, creating a culture where the individuals know they can take a risk and they can think differently and be supported in really transforming the work. And really what COVID forced us to do is accelerate those relationships. We had to immediately trust, because the reality was we were creating programming and instructional models that no one had ever created. There was no playbook. There was no other company we could reference and say, hey, how did you guys do this? Because literally as a nation, as a state, we were doing it all at the same time.
And all on the fly. I know we had never done drive-thrus for anything, you know? That was like, right. Yeah.
It was.
This isn't McDonald's where you drive through. Well, yeah, it turned out to be for vaccines.
And it was interesting. A lot of those things that we came up with and learned, you imagine it, in some ways, how do we leverage this change? How do we take advantage of it? The level of technology integration in our classrooms now has drastically been accelerated because we all had to force ourselves to get in with that technology, use it to teach classes. So now what you see in our classrooms is more technology being integrated, students using it to solve problems, just not to, write the paper, but get online and do the research because we had to. Stronger relationships between our administrators and our teachers, because, we made great plans, or what we thought was great plans.
Which in our case lasted about a day, maybe.
Yeah, and that's the point, right?
Yeah.
You'd make a plan, and then the rules would change, or the requirements set by the state would change. And
they still are.
Yeah, and
to be perfectly honest.
We just did that last week, so you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
Or what you created just wasn't working the way in which you intended it to work. So you got to step back, evaluate what's going on, and say, hey, guys, I know we negotiated this contract, or we wanted to do this particular way, but let's just reevaluate how we're doing. And I think as we came out of the pandemic, which is
Are we out?
Exactly. I was going to say, put an asterisk on that statement, right?
We thought we were.
As we thought we were, we realized as a organization, we had created this culture where we can really solve some complex problems. And now we're putting those behaviors and that trust and that relationship to work around teaching and learning.
It's really called evolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, first we crawl and then we walk and then we learn how to run. And I think that over this last year and a half, although we thought we were all done with having to turn on a dime, the regulators and other things, the surges, those have all changed us as well. But I think definitely for the better.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, as we started this school year, we were excited. We did all of the development that we could possibly do over the summer. We brought in teams. We created a new way of doing school improvement, a new process that really connects the district and schools together, all working in the same direction. And when we started the school year, off to a great start, but a weekend, holy cow,
then, yes,
the Delta variant hit. It was more aggressive than all of last year. The first, 6-7 weeks of schools, we experienced more COVID cases in that time than we did the entire previous school year.
And I think the big difference is that people are really tired of it. You know, it was, I don't want to call it an adventure those first 6 months after we had COVID, but everybody felt like they were in it together and they were all sort of struggling together. We had a common goal to get through this. And now, the reality is that people are just plain tired of it, and so they've come to different conclusions. So tell us about how you handled that then in the school a week or 2 or 3 later.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It was a point of frustration. We dealt with it once. We struggled through it. We came out stronger on the other end. And when you see, here we go again, it's just, oh man, from me as a superintendent, that was my stance. And the same thing with teachers and administrators. So you couldn't just go back to the way things were last year? You couldn't, because the rules engagement had changed. So we were allowed to do that virtual model or that transitional model, which allowed parents to make a decision. Hey, if you're not comfortable, keep your son or daughter home. And that was fine because the state allowed it. That was pulled off the table. So that option and level of flexibility wasn't being afforded to parents because it wasn't being funded through the state.
See, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think they really thought, well, this is just, it was so hard for the teachers that the school districts chose not to have this blended thing.
Absolutely not. Now, I think the data is clear. A lot of students who participated in those models across the state, ultimately the nation, were impacted by that COVID slide. You cannot replace a teacher in a classroom providing that quality instruction aligned to the standards with the group of children that are in that class. It can't be replaced. And there were variations of models being done across the state, but they didn't yield the results that our students ultimately deserve. And
let's face it, if parents wanted to be teachers, they'd have gotten their teaching certificate.
Oh no!
They didn't feel that was their greatest strength.
On a normal, whatever normal is, but in a normal school year, teaching is complex. Now it's an art, it's a craft, it's incredibly rewarding, but it is also incredibly complex. So to think that you throw this additional layer on, and we'll just go with the flow, it was hard, And I think as we brought back students this year, teachers know, I know where my third graders are going to be academically. They always typically come in around the same academic readiness level. What we found this year is no. You have kindergartners that didn't go to pre-K at all. We had students who had been outside of a typical school environment for most or all of the year. So as we greeted our students back, not knowing 2 weeks down the road everything is going to change because of the Delta variant, we found them in very, very different places.
Yeah, and all over the map. There are a few that I've heard about working with Dodgertown, where we're a community school partner. There are a few who were very fortunate for whatever reasons, whether they were self-motivated or parents or grandparents or whatever, they came in ready and at grade level. But most of them did not. And not just at Dodgertown, obviously, all over the place.
The priority around literacy, teaching reading, and teaching math is an absolute priority. And there's work to be done. That was one of the things that attracted me to the school district of Indian River County. I looked at the data set for the county, and then having the opportunity to visit the community, there was a disconnect. What I saw in neighborhoods and restaurants, how I was being greeted, didn't align to the academic performance in schools. So the significant opportunities really to provide support, provide clarity, the skill, the will, the belief of our teachers. It's all here, but you have to organize ourselves in a way really to move the needle. And that's some of the things we've been able to do.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm so excited because I can't help but think that perhaps the Moonshot community might have factored into that just a little bit, knowing that there's a small group of individuals across the community which needs to expand, that is definitely about working with children from birth on, maybe even pre-birth in terms of reading, to get them so that their vocabularies are better, their confidence is better, so that their motivation to learn is better, because that's really the future of our whole county.
Absolutely. And you look at what Moonshot Moment MCAM has done. We're going to be celebrating them at our next board meeting as they celebrate 10 years of doing this work. And I can tell you, you are correct. It is a high level of attraction when you look at outside organizations, the willingness to support and leverage energy around supporting children from birth through graduation. To me, it was like, wow, all of the pieces are here. How do we put them together? It's not, the outside support services, and then the school over here. It's all pulling them together. And how do we connect? How do we understand we're serving the same children? How do we build relationships ultimately to ensure every single child has what they need to be successful?
Well, and I'm just going to chime in. That's one of the things that attracted us. Children can't learn if they aren't in school, and if they are sick, if they have a toothache, if they are acting out and need to have a frame of reference through a counseling appointment, we need to be preventative and, dare I say, aggressive in helping that child so they can get back and really focus on their schoolwork.
No,
so
absolutely.
It's a great partnership.
Absolutely. You cannot focus in on teaching and learning if you are hungry, if you don't feel good, if you're nervous about where your next meal is going to come from, things that are going on at home, so that is the strength of partnerships, really ensuring whatever the need be for a child, we connect them to that resource. So when they walk into that school, they feel safe, they feel comfortable, they know they're accepted, they're embraced, and they can put all their intention on that instruction in that classroom.
So here's a question that I'm just going to let you ponder while we take a short break. In the adult business, we send out satisfaction surveys. And I think for children, we judge their satisfaction, their ability to process, to learn, and those types of things on their school grades. How did they perform in the testing area? Have you ever thought about or experienced elsewhere sort of satisfaction, a feel-good survey among the children? And on that happy note, I'm going to say, let's have a word from our sponsors. Hi, I'm Vicki Soule, Treasure Coast Community Health CEO. 5,000 adorable rubber duckies will race for the finish in the Great Duck Derby, held on October 24th at Captain Hiram's. The winning duck will take home a $1,000 grand prize. All ducks help us provide health care for all. Duck adoptions start at only $5. Pay it forward and adopt more ducks for your family and friends at thegreatduckderby.com. TCCH is a nonprofit.
Visit fellowship-trained Dr. Sarah Kadadaday for the latest in glaucoma treatment and custom cataract surgery at New Vision Eye Center. Dr. Kadadaday received her fellowship training at Yale University and is board certified by the American Board of Ophthalmology. Call for your consultation at 772-257-8700 or visit newvisioneyecenter.com. World-class eye care on the Treasure Coast. That's New Vision Eye Center.
This is iHeartMedia's Treasure Coast Connection.
The Treasure Coast Connection is brought to you by New Vision Eye Center.
Hi, Hi, I'm Debbie Butler with Guardians for New Futures, President of the Board of Directors. We are pleased to announce the creation of a Child Advocacy Center to serve abused and neglected children from St. Lucie, Martin, Indian River, and Okeechobee counties. The center will provide all needed resources for a maltreated child in one location where they only have to tell their story one time. Everything from the physical exam and mental health resources and more will be provided via this multidisciplinary team approach. Agencies involved in the welfare of a child will be relocated, bringing resources to the child rather than the current system.
Call New Vision Eye Center for a consultation or second opinion. Your eyesight deserves world-class eye care. Visit newvisioneyecenter.com or call 772-257-8700.
And welcome back to Community Conversations. If you're just joining us, my name is Vicki Soulé. I'm the CEO of Treasure Coast Community Health, where we provide primary care for everyone, children, adults, grown-up children, you name it, for medical and dental and behavioral health, pharmaceutical needs. We're starting a new vision program for our children. We are really ramping up our diabetes program, so if you or a loved one are struggling just a little bit with diabetes, want a little more attention than perhaps you feel you're able to book with your own provider, please give us a call. We have a diabetes peer who is helping coach new diabetics and those that may have had a medication change. So again, I invite you to reach out to us at 257-8224 if we can help you in any way. In the meantime, I do want to switch gears back to Dr. David Moore, who is the Indian River County School Superintendent. We've been having a delightful conversation about COVID and the challenges that we have encountered over these last 2 years. And I threw out a little bit of a question before we left for the station break to Dr. Moore about satisfaction scores among particularly our older children.
All right, excited to talk about something that's not COVID. So as we change the gear, in looking at grading, we do some very, very unique things here. On the academic front, in elementary schools, we just don't do that typical 9-week grade in reading and math and science. We actually drill down to the standards in which we're teaching and assess the student and inform the parents on how they did with that particular standard. So a standards aligned grading formula versus a very generic over time aligned to a content area. Gives parent very specific information on where we are seeing mastery and where we are seeing a deficit. So you can say, I got an A in reading or a C in reading, but what do I need to work on? With this, it identifies you're really strong in comprehension, but on fluency, we need to continue to work, as an example.
Okay.
Another thing we do, more direct to your question, is we conduct climate surveys throughout the year. And a climate survey is a confidential way where students can provide information back to us regarding the culture in their school. Do they feel safe? Do the adults in the building care for them? Is there someone trusted that they know who they would go to? And we use that really to look at each school individually to say, you know, we can grade ourselves academically, or we can push that onto students, and we can push conduct grades onto students. But if we don't have a system to progress monitor and inform how we're doing based on the feedback from the client, the student, then we're not doing the best we possibly can. So we use that information throughout the year to look at the cultures within our school to determine how we can change or modify to ensure, as we were saying earlier, kids come into schools, they feel safe, they feel comfortable, warm, and embraced.
That is awesome. Clearly, I have no children in the public school system and haven't for some years. So that's really, really good to know.
Yeah.
I know that it has been a challenge with the children coming back, as we talked earlier about different grade levels, regardless of where they chronologically should be, because of the disruption of care last year in the school system. So how have you adjusted this school year? Extra classes, extra tutoring. I mean, we still can't get all of our volunteers back out.
We're close. We're close.
Okay.
But we did, as I was mentioning earlier, we planned a absolute wonderful school year. So a new contract with our teachers union, really makes them the highest paid beginning salary on the Treasure Coast.
Nice.
Median salary also in the top 5 in the state of Florida. Really acknowledging the impact that teachers have in creating conditions in schools so they can be as successful as they all want to be. And that expectation that we have for student outcomes is unwavering. But you can't have those outcomes unless you have the time to plan. So we implemented some new initiatives around planning. So we wanted to eliminate teachers in isolation. And I think when people think of teachers, they think of it as a very adult and student relationship. Adults are with their kids all day long, and they don't have the opportunities to create and rely on relationships with their colleagues. We're implementing what we call common planning, which are opportunities throughout the day for teachers to come together who teach common subjects and plan together.
Now, is that within the school or is that across school since we now have Zoom?
Right now, well, good point. It's within schools.
Okay.
So as an example, we're second grade ELA teachers, and there's 2 or 3 classes per that grade. We're going to come together. We're going to look at the what's going to be taught the upcoming week. We're going to, brainstorm and bounce ideas off each other and come up with what we think the best lesson is. Now, they're not going to come up with the exact same lesson. They're still going to have the opportunity to put their own little flair on it because we can plan the same lesson, but you're going to do it your way. I'm going to do it my way. It's going to come out different.
Experiences as well.
Different stories. But then they have the opportunity the following week to come back and say, well, you know what? That did not work for me. I tried that strategy and it was a debacle. Or someone else may be successful. So tell me why. Let's talk about that. Let's figure it out. So it's building a adult-centered relationship around the work, the craft of teaching. So it really helps us create and empower teachers.
And that will help our retention, which is really important to the children because they have formed relationships with these teachers.
Exactly. And I think, back in the day when I was a teacher, it was very lonely. I created my own lessons by myself. My interaction with colleagues was running on the way to the classroom in the morning, at faculty meetings where someone was just talking to you for an hour. You really didn't have the time over the course of a school year to build that relationship. We want to be intentional in doing that. Another initiative that we put in preparing for this COVID, reactionary year is provide opportunities for us in the confines of the school day in our secondary schools to have time to address that impact, that loss. So in secondary schools, as you know, you'd have, 7 classes. You move throughout the day and you take those classes. We didn't want to take any of those enrichment courses away. So kids, number 1, dropout prevention strategy, electives and extracurriculars, band, chorus, art, you name it. In our district, we pretty much have it. But we wanted to have that time to address the academic deficiency. So we created a new model. So we offer an 8-period day. So you have 4 classes on day A and then 4 classes on day B.
So they're longer in length.
They're a little bit longer, but you only take 4 a day. And what happens is the student can take that remediation course without having to give up that enrichment course. So it's the best of both worlds. Now, another thing that happened, a teacher last year in a typical non-COVID year would only have 55 minutes of planning a day. Now they have 90 minutes of planning a day.
Because of the length
of the class.
You're so clever.
Yeah. Well, it costs a little bit of money, so it doesn't come free. But ultimately, it's an additional investment in saying, hey, we can talk about having high expectations and what we want for our kids, but if we don't give teachers the time to figure out how in the heck to do that, when every kid in the class is in a different, learning spot or place, we won't be successful. So we're putting that into our secondary schools. That's just a few of the, we rolled out about 36 new initiatives over the course of the year.
Wow.
Planning, which we spoke about, the 8-period day. We've also entering a program for advocates in our 6th and 9th grade students. So you look at those 2 particular grade levels and the academic regression in those is historically really, really bad. Why? Because you're transitioning into those schools. So we're assigning mentors to really serve as advocates relationships with the parents and the students and the teachers to make sure parents have that information.
This is so exciting. We've got to have you come back again
Absolutely.
because we have run out of time again. Thank you very much for staying with us to the end, and I will get Dr. Moore back soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.